This is the Triple Play Fantasy Basketball Show. I'm your host, Coach James Lewis, with a couple of very intelligent basketball minds. Um, People I know growing up, but to this day are some of the people that I go to when I'm having crazy thoughts. Um, my college colleague, Chase Rieder, in current Montgomery County Northwest High School varsity head coach, and varsity basketball is right around the corner. I know you're getting excited. I know you're trying to implement your system. What's going on with you, Coach?
Oh man, not too much. Like you said, it's almost November, so tryouts are in a couple weeks. And like we talked about earlier, I think we have no idea how the county's going to be with, we lost the whole season, so I think everyone started from ground zero, got to build up, and I think it's gonna be a good season of high school basketball in the county.
Absolutely, and very excited for you as this is your first opportunity to coach your own varsity team. And I mean, you've built the pedigree, you worked your way up, and a lot of coaches coaching high school basketball, you know that it's not an easy position to grab. So shout out Coach Chase, and good luck to the Northwest team. And my guy representing the Willows, Montgomery County, Maryland. If you know, you know. Other people might know him as Mixed by Tweez, music engineer, manager, producer. What's up, TJ?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Let's talk this basketball. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're gonna talk some top 75 NBA as 70 years anniversary. We got they had the 50-year anniversary list. Now they have 75. It's hard to make these lists, especially with young superstars that, hey, 5 years from now, we know that list is going to change. But we got to wait till year 100 until we see the new list. A new season is amongst us. Younger players are stepping up. We were just mentioning before pre-show. LaMelo and John Moran are just taking the league by storm. Who would you rather have? I feel like it changes daily. It's hard to speak on these things, especially when they're so young in their careers. But first, we are going to talk that NBA 75. We're going to talk about snubs, or people on the bubble on this list. Here you see it. This is in alphabetical order, as they smartly did, from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to James Worthy to number one overall picks. Hey, they played together, and Magic Johnson. Like, what a cheat ass squad. That might help them bump their career numbers. Maybe James Worthy isn't in the top 75th anniversary team if he doesn't play with such team, but some players are lucky, some players don't get a surrounding cast, and maybe that affects their trajectory. I'm gonna send it around the horn. I'm gonna start with Tweez, as I got my top guys that may have gotten snubbed. Do you have a gripe with one particular person? Are you letting a couple of guys in? And with anybody that you put in, who you taking out?
All right, so I kind of acknowledge that there is only 25 people added. Well, 26 because there was a tie, right? So acknowledging that, I'll say the 50 that are stuck in. We're not even going to
Wait, before I hear your answer, what do we think about that? How are you gonna go with a
I
tie?
hate
This is a 76. Like, I just feel weird about how they could make a tie on the 75th, 76th player.
I hate it here, actually.
What are we doing?
I hate it there.
Anyways, you might as well just make it 80. All right, Tweez, you were about to get into your ramble on who you think is the biggest snub.
Okay, the biggest snub on first glance is for me is Dwight Howard, and then followed up behind that, weirdly enough, is probably Klay. I think that if we're going to allow contemporary players or the newer players to be in it, then you should have some kind of claim to being the best of or being the top 5 player at some time. And he's one of the best of or close to the best shooter besides Steph that passed that passed through over this time period. So I mean, if we got Ray on there, I kind of want Klay on there. If we got Dame on there, I kind of want Klay on there. This is not really about just skills. It's about greatness when I think about the 75 greatest players.
And then I think about Reggie Miller as well, who who's did not win a championship and played at a time that the three ball wasn't as much of a focal point, so his numbers get tainted a little bit. But he still, sits on top of the list. Chase, who's your number one player? Because Tweez mentioned my number one guy that I think that should be on there. And then it kind of opens up the other question on the shooter is Klay. Do we value him over Reggie, Damian Lillard, who is still in his prime of his career, and maybe that was a trajectory pick.
Yeah, so I mean, based on your snub list, I mean, I would have to say the two guys I thought about were Tony Parker and Pau Gasol. I mean, Tony Parker has 4 rings. Obviously, with the Spurs, he was a 6-time All-Star. He made the All NBA second team 4 different times. So he's got the resume. Now, when the panel was voting, I mean, this kind of takes him back to, again, you put Damian Lillard on there from all his scoring, but again, we didn't value any defense. I mean, obviously you have Pau Gasol, who was a great defender, not on there. Dwight Howard, great defender, not on there. So you put in, the current guys like Dame Lillard and James Harden. It's like, yeah, if you look at their points per game, it's awesome. And, obviously they make all-star games every year, but when they vote for all-star games, it's usually how your team is doing, right? So, usually if somebody gets snubbed, it's like, all right, he's averaging 25, but they're in last place. So we gave it to the guy averaging 20 because his team's in first place. Here with the 75, there was, there was no criteria of what makes you an all NBA 75 player. So you can see from the guys getting snubbed was they didn't value defense at all. And I think they were hating on the international players, in my opinion.
So give Paul Gasol some love. Give Manu Ginobili some love. I wanted to touch on kind of my thought, my number one before we kind of open that box a little bit more. And to me, I believe that Dwight Howard is clearly the number one player left off. 8-time All-Star, which I know Chase just mentioned that's a half year award, and it has to do a lot on your team success, and it's not a full season award. But All NBA is, and he's 8-time he's still playing, 8-time All NBA, 5-time All Defense, 3 depoys, 5-time rebound champ, 2-time block champ. Those show your defensive prowess, but he was one of the better interior post players in the game for 6 to 8 years. He won the championship, finding his new role, which I think helps his resume. Anytime you can win a championship, even if you are coming off the bench and you're finding a new role for yourself. Dwight Howard on paper is a much better player than, say, Anthony Davis, who made it. On paper right now, I don't think he's a better all-time player. Maybe that there is some trajectory as far as that's concerned, but even Anthony Davis has been a victory of playing with LeBron James, as Dwight Howard is, as far as them winning NBA championships. So I take Dwight Howard all time better. I mean, he's finished in the top 5 MVP, top 3 before, and he took his Orlando Magic team, being the best player on that team,
beat LeBron,
beat the Celtics. And I mean, Kobe was motivated. They went down there, but to be a best player on a team that went to the championship, a la Allen Iverson, it's not an easy thing to do. And he needs to get credit for when he was a great player. But I think that, those other years when they're Atlanta or Charlotte, Washington, they taint you a little bit. And I don't know if he's getting that Terrell Owens treatment that the NFL Hall of Fame is doing by him getting snubbed on this list. But you can't tell me that he's not one of the top 75 players of all time based on this resume.
especially if you're telling me that Carmelo and Ray Allen are. And I know a lot of people are going to frown upon that, but these are guys that never did it as the number one guys for their teams. I don't understand why they have such a firm place on this top 75 before people like Dwight get that. Dwight for 5 years was the most dominant center, and granted it was watered down at the center, but nonetheless he did it.
And there's always the who's better than LeBron, who's coming for LeBron next, and who's up there with him. He's one of the guys that at a certain time people thought maybe he could take it. And let's face it, that series, yes, you have other parts. You have Turkoglu, you have Petrus, you have Ray for all. Like, you got surrounding pieces that help you out. But he was the focal point on defense that really stopped LeBron from going into the paint and dominating. It was a clear cut. This guy is the reason why we're going to the championship, when they were doing all the puppets for Kobe versus LeBron. So Chase, what's your take on Dwight? And so you had Powell. So do you want to make a case for Powell over Dwight all time, or at least on this list for 75?
I mean, I feel like you have to throw in, just like you have to throw in when you talk about Hall of Fame, you have to throw in championships, as well as with the 75. So I mean, Pau Gasol has 2.
Yeah.
With
and
Kobe.
A focal point on both of them, and Dwight was
a huge part of that. So yeah, no, I think both should have been in. And like with Dwight, this could have been the now in 2021, this could have been the thing where we don't talk about the new NBA with the whole stretch 5. Like, this could have been like, hey, you guys don't know, like the kids don't know that Dwight was a bad man before this whole stretch 5 thing, stretch 4 thing came apart. I mean, he was, like you said, he took his whole team to the finals in 2009 versus the Lakers. I mean, it was literally him. You had some nice role pieces, like you said, with Petrus, Turkoglu, a young Trevor Ariza, but it was Dwight Howard. I mean, once Shaq started, dwindling, Dwight was the most dominant player in the league. And what really screwed him was, not being able to stretch the floor. And, it just sucks that he's not part of the NBA 75, because he needed to be. I mean, like you said, you could have taken some guys off, probably, if I'm looking at the list, like, I mean, especially our generation. I mean,
that's another thing.
A lot of players can roll.
And so I would touch on first on the Dwight thing. From 2004 to 2018, he was a double-digit rebound guy. I think he's the greatest rebounder of like the generation, the 2000 plus that we've seen, and then his ability to protect the interior. But there is a thing where they made a list of the 50 greatest, or the 50th anniversary team, where they had 50 people. None of those players were taken off. And I think that maybe should we reevaluate that, because now it's 75th, and hey, you can only add 25 players, or in this case 26. Do you start going back in time and being like, nah, this player from this generation is probably better than Dave DeBusschere?
See, but that's what makes it so impactful, is that now the fact that it's not that I don't think that Dame Lillard is great or that 80 is great. It's just that they're already locked in now into the top 100, because they're not going to get removed. And I understand why they did it this way, but at the same time, they should have just done the 50th anniversary team should be its own team, and it should have its own 50 people. Then the 75 should have a couple of people that repeat if they have to, but this is a new team. A new evaluation of the 75 greatest players, considering a new time to look at the league and all the things that have happened. So they could have combined a little bit.
Chase?
And if I'm looking at this list that you have on the screen right now, I was kind of shocked to see that Dennis Rodman got in. Like, again, you talk about these are they're kind of portraying this as the top 75 players of all time. When I'm thinking the top 75 players of all time, I'm thinking about all aspects of the game. I mean, Dennis Rodman was a hustle player. Yes, he was a great defensive player. He was a great rebounder. But if he doesn't win all those championships, is Dennis Rodman any different than I'm not trying to think of a player like that on top of my head. It's not easy, but do you know? So I feel
Ben
like
Wallace,
he got
perhaps.
yeah.
No,
Okay, let's say Ben. Okay,
Wallace-
let's say Ben Wallace. So you're saying that he got in the Hall of Fame. Now he's in the 75th anniversary team. It's really based on him being part of those Bulls dynasty teams. And now you're going to have. So again, I think us and fans around the world just wanted to know how the panel was voting. Was it based on championships more than actual numbers? Or
I agree. I agree.
I would have liked more of an explanation.
The criteria is up in the air because, although I see where you're coming from with Dennis Rodman, the reason that it doesn't bother me with Dennis Rodman is, like I said, for me, it was like if I was making top 75, it would be the top 75 would have people that were the greatest at certain things to fill up spaces, and then people who were the greatest players, and then people who were considered the greatest of their time period, like literally considered for that. And I think a lot of that gets confused in our memory. Like Melo is remembered as something that he didn't really reach. He never really was considered as the best player in the NBA. He would be argued as like a fan favorite of the NBA, but never the best. You could never go into a room and be like, Melo's better than everyone in the NBA right now. You couldn't do that as a really invested basketball fan. And I think he got remembered differently. Same with Ray Allen. I think he was never even considered. Ray Allen was barely top 10 considered. Like when I think back, like barely top 10 considered all the time in the league.
And we're talking about, the greatest 75 players of all time. Like none of these guys are scrubs. They're all unbelievable. And the Dennis Rodman one, it's alarming because I don't know. I've always kind of been a Dennis guy. I just mentioned that Dwight Howard's probably the greatest rebounder of our generation. That's kind of 2004 when he entered the league till now. But Dennis is, to me, the greatest rebounder of all time outside of Wilt Chamberlain, who averaged 20 for his career. But Dennis led the league for 7 straight years, and even when he was 38 playing for the Dallas Mavericks, half-ass, he averaged 14 boards. He was unbelievable. He found his role. He's a weird one, clearly, but does he deserve to get in? 5 championships. Yeah, that's where it becomes a 2-time defensive player of the year. That's where it becomes what is the criteria and what are we looking at?
Yeah, I just love how nobody talked about who we should take out. It was just snubs, and it's like for every list you're gonna talk about snubs. Every list you can talk about snubs, but yeah. I actually would like to hear who people would take out more than the snubs.
Agree.
Because who's got the kahunas to say that?
I do. AD got to go. Dame got to go. I can do all the contemporaries, but nah.
Well, when you said Ray, Melo,
and
Carmelo.
Melo hurts the most, but Melo got to go.
In my opinion, if I was in charge of this, I would have done. You've had to be in the league. You've had to be drafted, by 2010 to be considered part of this team. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but yes, Giannis is going to be Giannis is one of the best players right now. Obviously, one of the best players out of the 75 years. But I don't think if I was doing this, he wouldn't have qualified because you would need at least 10 years in the league.
I think, and we haven't mentioned Damian. That's a great point, and we haven't mentioned Damian Lillard, but I think that there is something about a trajectory thing. But if we're all picking trajectory, I think that on the 100 list, I think it would be crazy not to see Luka on the list. I think we all can.
I'm glad they didn't put him on. I'm glad they didn't put Luka on, and I'm glad Jokic wasn't on because again, these guys have been playing for 4 or 5 years, and with Dwight, let's talk about his longevity. He got drafted in 2004, so he's been in the league for 16, 17 years now, and he's going to keep playing. So I think longevity should have played a role in this too.
And Shaq got put on. This was the last list was what, 96?
I was just
he was in year 5, right? And we all saw we saw this monster that he was gonna be the guy, but I guess he might be the Giannis, but he hadn't won MVP a couple times and a championship finals MVP. So that's where I kind of scratch my head as far as the criteria, who we putting in, who we don't, because somebody can jump the line, but other players maybe
I
we're a
agree.
little bit more
What
reserved.
I agree with what you're saying. In terms of like considering those younger guys, right? Because the criteria got to be fixed, right? But the difference between Shaq and Luka is just Luka's only played the Clippers in the playoffs. That's it. So no matter how impressive the numbers are, he's only played one round against one team.
Two first rounds, but yeah, it's so funny because he's got more points than anyone else that hasn't been past the first round of all time already.
That's what you do when you play 7 games twice. Like you play 7 games twice. What you play. You set records. There's like these I like called the loophole records in which it happens with your capacity for the situation. For example, if you play 14 games in round 1, you're probably going to have the record for the most points in round 1 games.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm the biggest LeBron fan ever. But I'm also a realist when I come to talking about LeBron. But like that, the playoff records are a little bit tainted because of how long his series goes and how long he's been in 10 finals, but you don't have the hardware that Michael Jordan only went to 6. He won 6. LeBron's
it's only totals.
been to 10 and won 4. So those numbers tally up, and then that gives you extra numbers.
Yeah, totals. It's not that they don't count, right? But it's just something you got to think about. It's like totals are different than averages. It's like, me, my favorite argument is John Stockton. Cool, he's great. I get it, cool. But when I consider him, I don't consider him about his totals because they involve playing for a long time. And for me, staying in shape and having an extra 5 years after your prime is not as important to me as having a higher prime.
I'm glad you mentioned him because it makes me think about Steve Nash on this list. I know he's a 2-time Finals MVP. I mean, he's a 2-time league MVP. Definitely not a Finals MVP as he's never been. But is he in there because of those 2 MVPs? Is he good enough? Is he better than John Stockton or some players that don't have that MVP on their list? That John Stockton, no one may ever catch that assist record. Maybe no one will ever catch his steal record. I mean, there is something that be the best at this all time in 2 different categories. So what's your opinion on Steve? And am I blasphemous to the Canadian?
No, you're not blasphemous to the Canadian. It's just that I just exactly like I don't think that John Stockton is the best at steals. I don't think he is. I think he led the league. He leads the all-time steal leader, but he led the league in steals twice. So there are people that led the league in steals more time than that. Like
Chris Paul,
MJ. So it's like those are the guys that I think about in dominating steals. So that's why I say totals are kind of misleading for me. Like even assists. Yeah, John Stockton is the assist guy, but really Magic is. That's just for me. You know what I mean?
No, and I understand that. Chase, what's your take on the point guard, and did I come for Steve Nash?
I like Steve.
No, I mean Steve Nash had to be on this list. I mean, if you get 2 back-to-back MVPs, you're definitely on the list. John Stockton, I don't know if you're trying to make the point that he shouldn't be. He should definitely be on the list. I mean, again,
I want to take him off the list. I just want to let you know. I just want to let you know I wasn't saying that. Continue though. Go ahead.
Oh no. I mean, yeah, no. I mean, all these guys should be on the list. And again, I'm like thinking about. I hate to say it, but I'm thinking about Dame, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, the reason why I think James Harden is on this list is because he's got the MVP. But
Dame, right?
I mean, come on, like that's what else has he done? Again, yes, led the league in scoring, but now with this whole new with this rule change with the free throws, you see, I don't know if he's gonna be averaging more than 22, 23 anymore because he used to get 7 to 8 points from the free throw line. Now he's averaging like 4 times or twice now going to the free throw line. He's shooting 4 free throws a game compared to his like 10 or 11. So
which is funny because Steph is still I think he's still 7 a game from the free throw line. So it's funny how some people can adjust and other people are struggling.
Trae Young too with this whole new rule change. Trae Young struggling too. So all right, let me ask you a question. I mean, yeah. So back to the point guards. Nash should be in. Stockton should be in. back to what my argument is with the MVPs. If Vince Carter wins MVP one time, is he on this list?
Yeah.
If he wins MVP,
If he
yes.
won an MVP, Vince Carter, yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, if
but he never was the best player in the NBA, and he never was really in that conversation.
Neither is Dame. Dame's never in this conversation.
I think TMac was closer to best player in the league when in the 3 years of his prime in Orlando, as opposed to Vince Carter at peak Vince Carter. I just think longevity makes Vince Carter probably a better player all time. Well, definitely makes him a better player all time.
Than who?
Than Vince.
Oh, Vince is better than Dame.
I mean, I'm sorry. With Vince better than T-Mac, even though I think T-Mac's prime, he was in consideration for a top 3, top 5 player in the league. But because of Vince Carter's longevity, all time, he's looked at a higher clip. Plus, USA Gold helps with that. So, yeah, it depends on your criteria. Now, I did want to throw this out to you guys. There were 2 guys that were not on the top 50 or in the 50 list that made it in here, which kind of takes away 2 newer generation guys. And I think that there were 2 guys that were left out. That's Dominique Wilkins and Bob McAdoo. Do you have a gripe with them getting on, or are you happy to see them there? And maybe in year 100 we add into these guys that we're talking about, as far as like maybe Manu Ginobili, maybe it's Powell, maybe it's probably going to be Dwight.
Yeah,
Chase, let's start with you.
So this is what the trend is going to be. Those 2 guys got snubbed from the 50th.
Yes.
So it's like the NBA and the way that they set up the panel. You had these old school reporters, writers, and guys who were basketball players and coaches who were like, we can't do that to our guys again. We can't snub them. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense that they got onto this list, because it should be 25 guys that played from 96 to now. So when they do the 100 list, the Dominique Wilkins, Bob McAdoo is going to be Dwight and Gasol and Tony Parker and all those guys. So no, it's fine that they were on it.
And LeBron James III is going to be left off. So somebody's going to I'm figuring Bronny's got a kid. He's going to carry on tradition. Somebody's going to get left off at that point. But we all definitely have eyes on Luka and other players. Any last takes on the NBA 75 snubs as we head out? I would think we've talked about T-Mac, we've talked about Vince, we talked about TP, Manu, Powell, Dwight. One player that I guess that we glossed over a little bit is Kyrie. A lot of people have said that Kyrie belongs on the list because from his peers, he's one of the skilled, if not the most skilled player to ever play the game, which, some people have said. Do we have any gripe with Kyrie? Does he belong? Does he not? I'm a firm believer that even though, he helped win that championship with LeBron and Cleveland in game 7 shot, although he's skillfully one of the best players of all time, he doesn't belong on the list.
I agree. I don't think he belongs on the list. He's in the same ballpark as Dame for me, except for he's got a little bit of plus because he got a championship and a big shot.
Wait, so you got him over Dame?
Here's my thing. I say he's in the same ballpark. I don't think he's
because Dame made the list.
I don't think Dame belongs on the list, and I love Dame, but he doesn't belong on this list.
I 100% agree. I love Dame too.
I really do, but he doesn't belong here. I don't even think AD belongs. I don't even think AD belongs here, and I'm a Lakers fan, so I just don't. It doesn't hit me right.
I don't think AD belongs yet either. I think that he should eventually, but I don't think he's earned it enough. I thought that when they came out with the rank list last year, when he was number 2 overall behind LeBron, I didn't think that he deserved that either. I think that he gets the crown a little too easy by. I mean, he's a great player and he was unbelievable, but people are like, he's the best player in the Lakers 2 years ago. When I'm watching the games every time, I'm like, nah, it's still Bron here. Like, he's unbelievable. He's great. They don't win at all without him, but I don't know why he gets such a size, because he's maybe a stat stuffer. I don't know.
It's a skill set thing. It's a skill set, the stats, that kind of thing.
He's a unicorn.
Mhm.
Chase, what's your take on that in AD being on?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with both of you. I think AD, Dame, Kyrie, I think they squeaked in because, and again, I think when I was looking earlier to see who voted, I mean, you have, and I think they had a good mix of older voters and younger voters. But like again, if you're going to ask Candace Parker to vote 10 guys in, she's not going to be voting for guys who played 20 years ago. I mean, she just didn't grow up with that. So she's voting for AD and Dame. I mean, those are her, like, so I just think, I think it was interesting that I think it was interesting that who they picked to vote.
No, that makes a big difference because, like, when you say that, I think about that. She's impacted even regionally, like where you are and like how you feel about certain players. Like anybody on the West Coast feels differently about Dame than a lot of people on the East Coast do because they see it in Portland. They respect him staying there and things like that. But I get that. That's a great point.
And I do believe, wasn't this the WNBA? Because it was, because they started in '96. They're 25. Why did we can't get a ladies 25 list? Or am I missing? If I'm missing something?
That would they did come out with a list, I believe, but it wasn't as obviously big as this. But so you're gonna ask WNBA players to vote for the NBA 75 list, but you're not going to ask NBA guys to vote for the WNBA 25 list. So,
they won't.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like, of course, because the NBA and its league, and they're gonna get the WNBA involved, but I think that's why there's a lot of dispute with who got in, who didn't, because some of the panel, I don't think they deserve some votes. I mean, if you look at the 88 members, some of them is like, how did they get a vote? And some legends didn't get.
I think I want to roll out on this one. So of the people on our list, who's your starting five? Please. Who you got? 1 through 5.
All right, we don't got to talk about MJ. Is this without MJ or with MJ?
No, of course it includes the greatest player to ever play the game of basketball.
All right, well, I just know for a fact.
I mean, I think he's a lock on all of our lists.
I think he's in. I think MJ is gonna make my list.
You think so?
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna start Steph. Actually,
okay.
I want Steph, MJ, Lebanon James, Giannis, and Shaq. Whatever, play us.
My man got 2 non-shooters. 1 and 2 greatest players, and then Steph, the greatest shooter of all time. Maybe it worked. I mean, that's tough. That's a tough lineup. Chase, I'm curious to hear yours.
Man, well, I kind of want to be. I mean, you can't go wrong with this.
No, hell no.
But
Dream at the 5. You know what I mean?
I'll go Shaq at the 5.
Okay, you too.
Duncan at the 4.
Like it.
KD at the 3. Jordan at the 2.
Stop it.
Magic at the 1.
Stop it.
Ooh.
Stop.
Sorry, LeBron.
Sorry, LeBron.
Huh? Wait, so you got LeBron?
That was probably one of the better LeBron-less lineups I've ever heard.
So wait, but you just went KD greater than Braun, basically. And is that like a lineup fit, or is that how you feel? You think that Kevin Durant is a better?
I wouldn't need LeBron on my team if I had Magic.
That's a double.
Interesting.
I need a space the floor with shooters.
All right. And you guys both got Shaq. All right, so maybe I might be the traditionalist, where like my list is, to me, the greatest player to play that position of all time, and so my list includes Magic Johnson, that Chase had. I have Michael Jordan, that is the only consensus pick on the list. Give me Bron at the 3. I'll take Timmy Tim Duncan at the 4, and I'll take Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at the 5, the guy that scored more points than anyone else, a jump hook that is unstoppable, and the guy that's probably cooking somebody at the YMCA to this day, a pioneer. And yeah, maybe mine's traditional. Maybe I might not win because I might not have the shooting that you guys picked with Steph and KD, but I thought that was a good way to end it. And I think that these conversations are going to continue. I love the talks here, our different points that we made. Tweez, on the way out, do you have anything to plug? Anything going on in your life? I know you're a busy man.
Check out Metronome Music, Bembo, Goo Glizzy.
Shout out Bimbo and Glow Glizzy, but shout out Bimbo.
Anton, everybody. Just shout
out
out
Anton. Shout out Anton.
Yeah, shout out everybody, man. Everybody's working on that side. So yeah, shout out everybody, and then the Willows.
Of course, Bimbo does the outro here on Triple Play. Anton it also had, of course, had something to do with that. Tweez with the connection there. So shout out all our local artists here in the DMV. Chase, you got anything to plug? Where can we find you at?
Man, you can follow me. Actually, you can follow Northwest Basketball. I'm gonna start posting a lot during the season.
Northwest Basketball
on Instagram at NWJagsBball. We're coming for the state title.
That's right. You heard it here, and we wish the best of luck to Blake Bengals, Richmond Montgomery basketball, Northwest basketball. You don't know, Maryland's we produce some hoopers out there, including ours truly, Kevin Durant, who I played against, Tweez played against in high school. Little plug talk to wrap things up. Wherever you find your podcast, go follow the Triple Play Fantasy franchise. Look out for our basketball, baseball, football pods that drop every week. Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel is dropping content every day. This includes Coach's Corner, Movie Minutes Reviews, Super Fantasy Bros, Fantasy 15, Between the Scenes, Victory Laps and Losses. I mean, the list goes on. Check us out on Twitter and IG at Triple Play Fantasy. Shout out Frantrax, Fantasy Points, D Mendy, Doc, Little Cheesecake, Bryce Adamas, Kev, Jacob, Marty Mack, and everyone on the Triple Play Fantasy team that keeps this engine running. Thanks again from the entire Triple Play Fantasy family for tuning in. Recently, me and Coach Kev on the Coach's Corner have been breaking down some college basketball preview. We'd like you to check that out. We got Michigan. We talked about UCLA, Gonzaga, Duke, some of the top teams in the nation, and we're dropping a couple more before the season starts. Getting prepared for the college season and checking out some of these promising prospects of 2022.